Hello everyone and welcome back along to the channel for the Super Rugby review for round number 5. 8 matches taking place over a glorious Easter weekend. I hope you've all had a fantastic few days off and enjoying the Easter break. But let's get down to business. It is Super Rugby review time. 8 matches, of course 2 sides having a bye. Those two were the Blues and the Lions. Now the Blues have lost a massive ground this weekend having the bye. That's really hurt them, and they've got a lot of picking up to do as the New Zealand sides had a fantastic weekend of rugby. Okay, so let's kick things off in round number 5 with our first match of the weekend, which was the Hurricanes at home to the Kings. Now, this was a pretty interesting match. The Kings never really expected to do too much, but they knew what their strengths were, and they run the scrum battle very, very well. And you got to commend the Kings in this sort of matchup. With 7 minutes to go, they were just 8 points behind, 28-20, the score to the Hurricanes with just 7 goals, just like last week where they bolted out against the Crusaders, leading 10-0 after 20 minutes or so. But once again, the New Zealand side specifically are getting a massive amount of take from their bench, and the Kings were demolished pretty much in those last 7 minutes. You think about it, 28-20 was that score, and then a full time 42-20, which is just a massive, massive turnaround. Halftime was 19-17 to the Hurricanes as well. They really just did blitz it in that last few minutes. Notable things I took out of that match was Ardie Savea, who is having an amazing season with the Hurricanes. Beauden Barrett is having absolute horrible time kicking off the tee this year, which is a bit of a concern for the international New Zealand side. The All Blacks, of course, thinking about his role in the team. I think the Kings, they have to look back and consider themselves quite unlucky in this game, but I think what they did miss was lack of experience to win matches like that, to close out the matches. I have to commend on their side, for sure, the fly half for the Kings, having a shot at goal from 60 metres out in New Zealand. That is almost unheard of stuff from any side around the whole globe. Now the Canes, of course, won this one 42-20. which was an absolute thrashing. My prediction was 47-19. So for me, I pick up myself 2 points to kickstart my weekend of picks. On to game number 2, and it was the Chiefs back at home, finally up against the Force. And, well, there's a lot you can talk about in this match, but the offloading, and once again, like we spoke of in the preview, the offloads and the tries that the Chiefs score from just nothing. They're on defense, they're near their own 22, and then bang, they'll just go and score the most ridiculous of tries. We've said it for probably 2 or 3 weeks now as well, that the Chiefs have this ability, due to their offloading and never say die attitude of ball in hand. They keep throwing those passes, and they got the players that just pick it up spectacularly. Charlie Ngatai, 4 tries. That's just ridiculous as well. James Lowe, brilliant. Damien McKenzie, outstanding as well for the Chiefs. Now this game, again, like the Hurricanes match, did really blow away at the tail end. It was 12-10 at halftime, so a brilliant second half from the Chiefs really took them home with a pile, what would that be? 41 unanswered points in the second 40 minutes from the Chiefs. Their strength off the bench, another team from New Zealand that really have that string in their bow that just makes them so, so strong. The final score on that one was 53-10. Yes, 53-10. My prediction was 32-12, so I'll take that quite nicely. 1 point for me from the Chiefs versus the Force. Matchup number 3, and it's off to Australia we go, where the Rebels are hosting the Highlanders, and a game that many were predicting would test the Highlanders. Now, I'm not sure what capacity the media really thought that was going to happen. I thought the Highlanders would probably take this one quite easily, but we have to ask again, like we have in previous weeks, who looks after these fields? Dreadful conditions. I almost border it on dangerous, with so much sand and then a little thin layer of what seems to be some type of grass. It's not proper grass anyway. That's for damn sure. It's ugly. There's men out there with pitchforks and shovels poking it back and stomping it. I mean, what the hell is going on, Australia, with your fields? It is dreadful. One scrum and you've got a massive pit hole in the middle of the field. It's just dreadful. I just can't fathom what is going on there with those fields. Or someone maybe enlighten me as to why they are in such poor condition. But on to the match. I think the Highlanders were a little bit sloppy and a little bit forceful throughout that match, although they didn't seem to play the same way they did against the Waratahs last weekend. They played with a lot of control. They defended very, very valiantly against the Rebels. They contained the match into their own areas that they could control, and that's really what they aim to do, is just mastermind this whole match from the get-go. That is a different plan. They played territorial, and they played rather conventional. Is probably the best way to describe it from the Highlanders. There was no big blitz, but it was a defensive masterclass, especially in the second half, where the Rebels just had no answers. They couldn't penetrate, they made mistakes, and they just didn't have a plan B to go to. And the Highlanders, well, they just did a professional job, as we mentioned, of other teams this season, and got the points on offer and made their way to a very good 27-3 victory over the Rebels. Now, my pick for that was 28-15, so I really gave the Rebels too much credit for that one, but I still picked myself up 1 point for getting the head-to-head right. Okay, now we make our way over to Singapore, where the Sunwolves are in action against the Bulls. Now, this one was interesting because the Bulls leaving South Africa, heading to Singapore. First time for them. How will they affect the way they play in these different conditions? Now, the Sunwolves, we seen it a fortnight ago from them. Amazing start, straight out of the blocks. They had a try. Durutalu, a fantastic player as well, scoring the opening 5-pointer for the Sunwolves. The Bulls, they had to really slow this game down, and to the point that there was a lot of talk about it being a boring match and, you know, not very good to watch, and someone's got to kick these teams up the ass. I think quite the opposite on this match. Now, the fact that people found this game boring in certain parts really reflects the contrasting styles of play between these two teams. The Sunwolves, they were keen to open it up, throw the ball around, give it the old 50-50, how's your mother, let's get a try at any cost. That's the way they play. The Bulls, they're going to grind it down, slow it down, play it in the forwards, keep it tight, and that's what they do. The contrasting plays really come out, and it was visible to see who was in control of the game and really who was on top at that specific time. Penalty count was a bit poor by the Sunwolves especially, but when you're really frustrated and ground down to a game you don't want to play, that's really just what happens. The Bulls also took everything on offer. Penalties, shots at goal especially, were really their main route forward. And the match always seemed like the Bulls were in control, but the Sunwolves, it seems you just cannot count this team out either, because they score some blisteringly good tries from nothing as well. Kind of like the Chiefs camped down in the grind against the Bulls, and then they scored just an amazing try. Yamada is really giving himself a fantastic name for the way that he plays, just breaking teams apart, destroying them through the side, and got to be one of the most informed wings at the moment. Ed Quirk, I feel sorry for this Australian man. He come on the field as a substitute and then gets a yellow card for something he didn't really do. It was a team warning, and he gives away a penalty. That, I thought at that point, killed it for the Sunwolves, but they weren't to be outdone. They continued to fight. The Bulls, they swamped every single breakdown, but what I most took from this match by the Sunwolves is that they played 80 minutes. They didn't let this one get away. If anything, they fought back stronger in the latter parts of the game, and you've got to say, the final score, 27-30. The Bulls stealing it by an absolute whisker. But the Sunwolves, another one that got away from them. They played good enough and they could have got the result. 27-30 the final score. Again, my prediction was for the Bulls to win, but I didn't think it would be close. 36-12 was my pick, so I still pick up 1 point for getting the head-to-head result right with the Bulls taking the win. Off we go to see the Cheetahs playing the Brumbies in our 5th match of the weekend, and it was a match that the Brumbies got off to a good start using their forwards with, and I thought this could be a long day for the Cheetahs, but their young pack, not to be outdone, not to be put down at all, hit back in a big way as well, because they started to dominate the scrum and the breakdown, which is something the Brumbies really weren't used to. They looked to one man to lift him, and that was Pocock, who did get very good after a bit of a slow start by his standards, and the Brumbies, after that, they seemed to coast away despite anything the Cheetahs had, and early on in the second half, there was a big difference between the two sides, but the Cheetahs, as we know from them all season, they have this ability to just stay in a match, be there or thereabouts, and consistently stay where they could possibly win a game. They showed a really late comeback to score 10 points in the last 7 minutes, and to their credit secured a bonus point for losing within 7. Sergio Peterson, I thought, was a fantastic danger for the Cheetahs, and for the Brumbies, I thought Thomas Cabelli is an absolute star in any backline you put him. For the Brumbies, he looked very, very nice. The final score on that one was 25-18 to the Brumbies, who just saved it right at the end by really starving off that late comeback of the Cheetahs. My prediction was 26-22, the Brumbies to take that out, so I was pretty close on that one as well, and I picked myself up 2 points for getting within 10, and the head-to-head result correct as well. On to what I thought would be probably one of the most interesting games of the round, and that was the Sharks versus the Crusaders. Now, two teams who are looking really good, and the other who are kind of struggling to find where they're really at this season. That is the Crusaders I'm talking about on the latter there. The Sharks, the only unbeaten side in the Super Rugby competition before this match took place, and they're up against 4th, that's right, 4th in the New Zealand Conference. So that is a big, big difference between these two sides, and the Sharks really, they just played defence. The Crusaders really owned all the possession in this game, and the Sharks lived off every little mistake. Amazingly, the points were only scored through tries and conversions. No successful penalties, to the point that the Crusaders actually chopped Richie Mo'unga off the goal kicking and gave it to Nemani Nadolo, who took the last lot of kicks as well. But as I mentioned, the Sharks, living off the Crusaders' mistakes, Mvolvo, 2 tries from intercepts / drop balls. He just latched onto everything. The second one was messy and dreadful play from the Crusaders. He was sniffing, and really, you have to say, the Sharks could have won this match just by taking and capitalising on the Crusaders' mistakes. All they did all game long, the Crusaders, would attack. The Sharks just defended. Right at the end, it was 72nd minute before the Crusaders put this one away, with Kieran Reid scoring a try, a messy try, a broken play try as well. But the key thing for the Crusaders here was their ability to keep the ball alive, as we've seen with the teams like the Chiefs as well, but also their kick chasing and regathering from the kick was a huge part of the Crusaders' game plan for that match. They come out on top, surprisingly, and as the Sharks coach mentioned at halftime, you cannot win a match when you don't have the ball and you're inside your own half. You just can't play that way for a full 80 minutes and expect to win a game. That's what happened, but you got to credit the Sharks the way they played, taking the opportunities. If they just play a bit more attacking, maybe get a bit more ball, they could really continue on to be a force in this competition. The Crusaders, though, just starved them for any possession throughout that whole match. Final score was 19-14, Crusaders with the win. My prediction was the Sharks to take it 38-30, so close nevertheless, but still 0 points for me from that matchup between the Sharks and the Crusaders. Off to Argentina we go next for our 7th match of the weekend. The Jaguars, or the Jaguares as everyone likes to call them as well, up against the Stormers. I thought the Stormers would have too much for the Jaguars in this match, but it really was a game of two completely contrasting halves. The Stormers were in everything. In the first 40 minutes, they controlled the ball, controlled the game, and scored all their points in the first half. Sanchez picked himself up a yellow card, and that's really when the Stormers capitalised the most and scored most of their points. The second half come around though, and the Jaguars, they really stormed out and they had to pull it all out and pick up some points, get themselves back in the game, but it just never really fell their way. The Stormers had to go from a team in control on attack to a team that were defending for their lives. Most of the second half, the Jaguars really were a threat, and they looked like they were going to score multiple tries, but they just could not finish it off, and in the end, they went down by a very, very small margin. Although Pablo Matera had a very good game for the Jaguars, and Mahalra very good for the Stormers as well. The front rower, had a storming match, massive amount of tackles and try-saving ones at that for the Stormers. The final score of that one was 13 points to 8. The Stormers with the win. I had 24 to 16, so not too far off, but a decent guess on that one. I picked myself up 1 point for getting the head-to-head correct once again. Right, our final match of the weekend. This one was on Sunday night, 6 p.m. kickoff here in New Zealand. A strange time, but I don't mind it. What else are we doing here on a Sunday night? It was Easter Sunday, of course, and well, many would have thought the Waratahs should have run away with this match. The Reds were getting the heavy artillery back, Slipper, Gill coming back into the team, and they look like a team transformed as well with the changes upstairs in the coaching staff. The Reds know that their scrum is pretty good. We've seen it over recent weeks, and of those additions as well, it only made it stronger. And the Waratahs we've seen from them, nothing good in the forward pack as the Reds really based their attack around their dominance in the scrum. It was a very testing match, as we mentioned in the preview. Queensland versus New South Wales, very much a direct rivalry between those two states. There was a lot of biffo, a lot of fighting. There was knees, there was elbows, there was palms to the face. There was yellow cards. Of course, it wouldn't be a rugby game without yellow cards, but it really showed the passion between these two sides, and the match really reflected that. I think it was a very close game that just contributed to all that and made it for quite an entertaining experience as well between the two sides. I thought the Reds looked very, very dangerous as well on attack. They're really getting the players like Karevi and into the match and into the action as well. The Waratahs spent a lot of that game, especially the second half, on defence, and somehow they just hung on. They didn't look comfortable in all situations. They were offside for a lot of that late part in the second half as well. They looked extremely flustered, did the Waratahs. They looked out of their comfort zone. They didn't like the way the Reds were playing, and they didn't like how it was affecting their game. But it come down to penalties, and we all know Bernard Foley, who did get smashed, and by that I mean absolutely destroyed on multiple occasions. He still stood up and made the big kicks count. It was topsy-turvy late on, with both teams leading the match, looking like there'll be enough. It was not the best conditions for rugby out there either, but they somehow managed to keep the game pretty clean considering the rain and stuff like that was going on. It was an entertaining match. The Waratahs eventually hung on right at the very end, but that game could have very easily gone either way. I think McIntyre had an extremely good game. The Reds fly half. He is quite a good-looking talent now that he has some players around him who are contributing quite nicely around him in the Reds. So that one ended up 15-13. Can you believe it? Just 2 points in it. I picked the Waratahs to thrash them 33-12. So I picked myself up 1 point for getting the head-to-head winner, but I have to say the Reds look a much, much better side than they did a few weeks ago, and they look like they could be a team that win a few matches, unlike what they looked like back in rounds 1 and 2, where they were just dreadful, completely dreadful. So throughout that round, I've picked myself up 7 points for the head-to-head results, and I've also picked up 2 bonus points for getting the score within 10. That's the Kings game and the Cheetahs Brumbies game as well. From those who picked the best 2, actually were tied with 6 points each. And that, of course, is the amazing picking that comes from TGI 321. And a newcomer to the selections was the reviewer. Now, their picks, both 6 points, but ones of note for these two sides, especially from the reviewer, who picked the Hurricanes to win 41-24. The score was 42-20. So an amazing pick right there. And as always, TGI 321 seems to always pull out an amazing pick. His third match pick of the Highlanders to demolish the Rebels. He picked 28-0, actual score 27-3. So very close picks, those two. They both tied it up on 6, but wasn't enough to beat my 9 points for the weekend. Alright, that wraps me up for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Hope you're enjoying this attempted, slightly snappier and sharper and a bit quicker series now. Try to get through these games in a quick review and see how we get on. Of course, all your thoughts and comments are welcome in the comments below. And of course, keep tuned and stick around for midweek when we're having a look at the fixtures for round number 6. Thank you for tuning and watching. Hope you had a great weekend watching rugby, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.